Today's video is brought to you by us. Do you love our content and want to support us, but direct payments are a step too far? We understand. Thank you for watching our videos and being fans. One awesome way to support us is to use the affiliate links in the video description of our videos. Peanut butter, anyone? More details on how they work after the video. Thank you. Why would we want to return to 80s and 90s computer prices? Those prices were insane, and back then computers were more of a luxury.
I never said we wanted to. Nobody asked. This is we didn't vote to do this. I'm not telling you what I want to happen. I'm telling you which way the wind is blowing. Don't blame the weatherman because a hurricane's coming. It's not his fault. But do you want him to tell you, yes, it'll be sunny and clear skies when there's a hurricane coming? I mean, I guess it depends on if she turns left.
Yeah, if she turns, I was waiting for it.
You heard that coming, didn't you?
I did.
So as far as the prices back then, yeah, computers were much more of a luxury. Fewer people have machines. People will have to keep their computers longer, and they will cost more. But see, here's the thing. A $2,000 computer in 1991 is $4,000 today. You don't have to spend $4,000 today to get a really, really nice computer. In fact, I've got a $1,900 computer down in the description below, which is, you'd be hard-pressed to really need more than that. That's a very, very nice machine. So, inflation adjusted, we are not going back to 80s and 90s prices. We're really not. But what we're not doing is repeating the 2010s where there was so little innovation.
Yeah,
there was no pricing power, and there was 5% improvement per year, and it was just kind of eat. And a 5-year-old computer was perfectly good. I don't know how many, it's not just price. In the 90s, a 5-year-old computer was junk. I mean, you could use it, it would physically function, but it wouldn't run anything new. In 2 years, it was starting to become obsolete, and in 3 or 4 years, it was useless.
Well, if you wanted to keep up with the new stuff.
Well, yeah, but that's assumed. And why people don't understand that blows my mind. It's assumed that when I talk about your computer becoming obsolete, it's for new software. A 2005 Pentium 4 will still run 2005 games just fine, and it will always do it until the end of time. But a 2005 Pentium 4 will not run Cyberpunk, no matter how much you try.
Correct. Even
if you put a 3090 in it. So, a 386 from 91... By the time Doom came out, and Strike Commander, and some other games in 93 and 94, it played 91 games fine, it played 92 games okay, but by 93 and 94, it was awful. You buy a 46 in 93 or 94, Windows 95 comes out, Quake comes out. Have you guys ever seen Quake? Do you know how fast Quake will run on a 46 DX4100?
Nope.
About 9 frames per second.
9?
Yeah.
How's that fun?
It isn't. It's non-functional. It basically requires a Pentium.
I don't think I'd like it on a Pentium.
No, it's fine on a Pentium. Around 30 or 40 frames a second on a Pentium.
30 frames a second.
30 frames per second was... Well, it was a different time, my love. So, yeah. And of course, if you bought a Pentium 75 in 1995 and then Windows 98 came out 3 years later, you want to try running Windows 98 on a Pentium 75?
Oh, I don't think that would be good.
Nah, it'd be awful.
Corey says that 2080 super because I traded it for a Switch and $600. Deal.
That actually does sound like a good deal.
You get a Switch and $600?
Yeah. Switch is $300.
Good
so
job.
You got $900 for his card. That is a good deal.
Corey's sitting there proud of himself right now. Mexi Man and Cheese, thank you. It's easier if I read it from here. Let's see. He says, ironic that everyone was begging for competition in computers. We got all the negatives of our components becoming obsolete faster, but none of the price benefits. Feels like the 90s.
In the spring of 1996, I spent $1,000 on a Pentium 166 CPU and motherboard combination. Not a computer, just the CPU and motherboard.
$1,000?
Yes. Inflation adjusted, that's about $1,700 today.
On CPU and motherboard?
You can buy a 12-core, 24-thread Ryzen 9 5950X and a motherboard for half that price today.
It's true.
The prices are not as bad as they were back then. They really aren't. It's a little bit hyperbole when you say that. And you don't have to go with the Ryzen 9. I mean, the Pentium 166 at the time wasn't really that. I mean, well, I was actually pretty good for 96, but I was tired of dealing with junk. I was like, screw it, I'm buying something nice.
Well, your computer wasn't working for you. You were working for it.
Still only lasted me 18 months.
Well, that's because you want to play all the new stuff.
Yes, but it wouldn't last any longer than that back then. If you want to keep up with the current stuff, every 18 months you were upgrading your machine.
That's a lot of money.
You don't have to do that every 18 months now. No. Now you could buy a Ryzen 9 and keep it for 3 years. Boy, that'll get some feathers ruffled. A Ryzen 9 for only 3 years? Well, if you want a premium experience, yes.
And if you're keeping up with the new stuff.
If you're okay to degrade your experience over time, a Ryzen 9 will last longer than 3 years. It won't become junk at 3 years. But if you want to keep up with new games, you know, if you've got a 34-inch 1440p 144Hz ultra-wide and RTX 3090, and you're playing Cyberpunk 2077 at ultra detail, and 3 years from now you want to play the ultra mega game, then you're going to need a new computer. You will. Because that won't be that impressive then.
Nope.
Has everybody forgotten that Intel's launching a 24-core consumer CPU next year?
I think so.
Just checking.
Zeno, thank you. He says PC gaming will go back to 2009. Bad.
2009 wasn't bad. 2009 was great. 2009 brought us, 2008 actually. The i7 920 for $329. That was a steal. Everybody should have bought that back then. That was amazing. If we were doing YouTube back then, holy crap. I had just gotten a Core 2 quad set up, and then the i7 920s launched. Completely different experience. Going from DDR2 to DDR3, going to hyper-threaded chips, 8 threads, easy overclocking with great clock speeds. 3.5 was easy. The 920 versus a Core 2 was awesome. And triple channel memory.
And then Corey says that he got his EVGA 3080 notified yesterday, 1 year later. Oh my gosh. Ooh. And Vicky says, thank you, Vicky. And people forget they can sell their Ryzen 9. It would have been a bit hard to sell stuff back then, because if it was obsolete, then who was buying it?
Well, I had the benefit in the 90s, especially the late 90s, of having a computer company where I would buy the latest and greatest for my own machine, and then I would use the parts from my machine into something for a customer. So I would cycle it all down that way.
That's what you said.
So there was a period of time in like 97 and 98 that I was probably changing a part of my computer every month.
Oof.
See, that's why I can tell you the early 90s, my computers, because they were kind of static. My Gateway 2000 was 91, my 486 was 93, my next gen 5x86 was 95, the Pentium 166 I bought was 96, and then later in 96 when I started my first company, very quickly, it never stayed the same. And so from 96 till about 2000, 2001.
How was it stable? Changing out all those parts. Didn't that drive you bonkers?
Windows 95 and 98 were a different time. DOS was a different time. Drivers and all that were different back then.
More stable. You had less problems.
It was easier to change parts without it causing problems with your machine the way it can today.
Because it does today.
It also helped that I was younger, had no kids, and tinkering with my machine on the weekends was fun. That was fun back then.
That was fun back then.
Anyway.
So this was all off of
Silicon Lottery.
Silicon Lottery.
I did not intend that to be that long.
You mean 52 minutes long?
No, we started at 9 minutes, and so it's really...
43 minutes long. How many articles have we got?
What's it going to take for us just to stream for an hour?
7 minutes.
I can't tell stories.
Well, you can. They just have to be... Affiliate links are often mentioned but rarely explained. There are a list of product links in most video descriptions taking you to places like Amazon, Newegg, eBay, and more. Affiliate programs are one of our primary income sources that we depend on to bring you all the content we make each week. But how do they work, you ask? Do you have to click on them every time? Does just clicking do anything? Or do you actually have to buy something? And what's the difference between one link and another? Well, to be honest with you, the internet is full of affiliate links, from websites to search engines to comparison shopping websites. Whichever link you click on last is the one that gets the credit. You're using them already and you may not even know it. The short version is that affiliate money is a commission or a percentage of the total product sale, paid to whoever sent the shopper to the site. It is usually paid, but not always paid, only when you actually buy something. What's awesome is that it doesn't matter what you buy. It could be a link to CPU or an SSD, but then you actually decide that you want some peanut butter. Awesome, it still counts. In general, anything you buy during the same web browser session counts towards the commission. The money being paid out for the commission comes out of the marketing budgets of the company. So it isn't affecting the cost. In this case, they are paying us for sending you there. Part of what's awesome about this is it allows you to be more proactive in supporting your favorite creators, which hopefully includes us if you're still watching this. 2 gold stars for you. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 gold stars. Be sure to use our links to shop for whatever you need. Thank you in advance for your support. It really does mean a lot to us and it enables us to keep bringing you more great content.